Section 1. The Arrival. October 12, 1944, Lincoln, Nebraska. A cold wind sweeps across the endless Midwestern plains as a U.S. Army transport truck rumbles toward the massive Hobson Railyard, its engine growling under the steel-gray morning sky. Inside the truck, sitting stiffly between two American guards, is General Lieutenant Wilhelm Reinhardt, a captured Wehrmacht logistics officer, once responsible for rail movements into Ukraine and the Caucasus. His wrists are unshackled, but the weight of defeat feels heavier than iron. As the truck slows, the general looks up, and what he sees makes his breath catch. Before him stretches a rail yard of impossible scale. Rows upon rows of tracks sprawl across the horizon like metallic arteries. Freight cars, thousands of them, stand ready in endless formations. Steam billows from locomotives like ghostly towers. Whistles scream across the sky, and cranes swing massive pallets of steel, wheat, and machinery, as if gravity means nothing. A captain sits beside him, arms crossed, watching the German officer's expression. "You're looking at the Hobson hub," the American says, almost casually. 20,000 railcars pass through here every single day. Reinhardt turns toward him slowly. 20,000? He repeats, voice tightening. 20,000. He thinks of Germany, of the broken bridges over the Rhine, the bombed-out switching stations, the crippled coal trains waiting for locomotives that no longer exist. He thinks of the desperate improvisation, the horse carts replacing engines, the factories working only at night to avoid Allied bombers. He grips the bench until his knuckles whiten. The truck stops. The captain gestures for him to step out. Instantly, Reinhardt is swallowed by the thunder of industry. 100 switch engines hiss and roar. Freight cars slam together in metallic bursts. Thousands of workers, men and women, move in choreographed precision, refueling engines, inspecting brakes, loading munitions. A convoy of tanks rolls past on flat cars, Shermans and priests, their barrels pointing toward the cloudy sky. Reinhardt mutters under his breath in disbelief. "In Germany, we ration coal by the ounce." The American captain smirks. "Here, we burn more coal in one day than your Reich does in a month." A locomotive screams and begins to pull a line of 50 freight cars, each filled with artillery shells, toward an outbound line. Another arrives simultaneously with spare aircraft engines from Detroit. A third shuttles a train of fresh troops toward eastern ports. Reinhardt watches, stunned. "Wie ist das möglich? How is this possible?" The captain answers as if reading his mind. "You're seeing the thing your high command kept calling a clumsy giant. But giants don't stumble, General. They crush." Reinhardt swallows hard. Hours earlier, he still believed, even after capture, that Germany could stall, negotiate, maybe survive. But as he watches America's industrial bloodstream pulsing at full power, a realization spreads through his chest like ice. Germany never had a chance. Not against this. A yard worker in denim waves as a locomotive thunders by. Another worker, a woman with a welding mask lifted to her forehead, wipes sweat with her glove and returns to her task. They work with a rhythm Reinhardt has never seen outside an army parade. Every machine, every hand, every movement carries the same message. We can replace everything you destroy. You cannot replace anything we destroy. The captain leans closer. You wanted to see how we build an invasion? This is how. Reinhardt closes his eyes. In his mind, he sees German trains waiting for fuel that never arrives. He sees panzer divisions stranded for lack of spare parts. He sees factories reduced to rubble, engineers improvising with scrap metal, entire battalions starving because the rail lines behind them are gone. When he opens his eyes again, he looks not at a rail yard, but at a sentence of doom. 20,000 railcars a day. America's silent army. The true front of the war. And for the first time since his capture, he whispers to himself, Der Krieg ist vorbei. The war is over. Section 2. The Realization. The noise changes as Wilhelm Reinhardt is led deeper into the railyard. The thunder of locomotives fades into something even more unsettling. The rhythmic clatter of machinery operating with perfect synchronization. He steps onto an elevated catwalk overlooking the central switching hub. Below him, dozens of automated switch towers redirect trains across a sprawling web of tracks. Operators in crisp uniforms sit behind rows of telegraph keys and rotary phones, their hands moving with the calm precision of surgeons. A massive map of the United States glows on a wall behind them, pins and lights tracking every train in motion across a continent. Reinhardt stops walking. He realizes something horrifying. This isn't a rail yard. This is a command center. A battlefield without soldiers but with greater destructive power than any army. An American engineer with rolled-up sleeves steps forward. "You're General Reinhardt? I heard you managed transport for Army Group South." Reinhardt nods cautiously. The engineer gestures down at the glowing map. "Then you'll appreciate this. Every line you see, every red signal, is a train carrying food, ammunition, fuel, or men straight to the East Coast. We'll load them onto Liberty ships, send them across the Atlantic, and they'll land in France faster than your high command believes possible." He taps a blinking light. "That train left Chicago 9 hours ago. It's carrying enough artillery shells to support Patton for a day. It'll be in New Jersey by tomorrow morning." Reinhardt feels his pulse quicken. Patton, that cursed name. For months, German officers had asked the same question. Where does the American supply never run out? Where does their fuel come from? How do their tanks keep moving? Now he sees the answer. 48,000 tons a day pass through here, the engineer continues. And this is 1 yard. 1. A telegraph operator turns in his seat. "Sir!" "A train from Oklahoma is reporting slight delay. Snowstorm." "How long?" the engineer asks. 10 minutes. The engineer shrugs. "Fine. Move the Chicago line to track 17. Keys click. Lights shift. And an entire column of trains realigns itself like a marching army. Reinhardt grips the railing. In Germany, a snowstorm halts rail movement for days. Here, it delays them less than the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. The scale is unthinkable. The efficiency beyond anything the Reich ever achieved. A yard foreman walks past, shouting over the noise. "Bring in the 200-car fuel train! Make room for the Louisiana convoy!" Reinhardt's eyes widen. Fuel trains, multiple, arriving one after another. He thinks of the panzers in Normandy sitting half empty, the desperate rationing, the Luftwaffe grounded for lack of aviation fuel, the Romanian oil fields burning after Ploesti, the endless Allied bombings severing Germany's few remaining supply lines. And here, gasoline flows like water. A steam whistle blares. Another line of wagons arrives, stacked with aircraft parts. An entire nacelle of a B-24 bomber dangles from a crane, drifting over the rail yard like an iron whale. The engineer smiles faintly. "You know, General, every hour we send more equipment to Europe than your entire nation can produce in a day." Reinhardt doesn't respond. His mind is elsewhere, remembering the silent nights on the Eastern Front where supply trains never came. Remembering the young soldiers freezing in foxholes, waiting for ammunition that never arrived. Remembering the arguments at high command, the desperate pleas to repair railways faster than bombers could destroy them. He looks again at the rail yard. The endless tracks, the thundering locomotives, the rivers of cargo flowing toward the war. And he understands. This is why Germany is losing. This is why Germany will lose. This is the final, undeniable truth. The American captain steps beside him.
General, your tanks may be better, your guns may be stronger, but you lost the war before Normandy even began.
Reinhardt closes his eyes. He knows the captain is right.
Section 3. The Turning Point.
Chicago, February 1944. Snow slams sideways across the open platforms, but the work never stops. General Wilhelm Reinhardt steps off a GMC truck and follows two American officers into a massive freight hangar. Warm air, thick with the smell of oil, steel, and hot engines, washes over him. The sound is deafening, forklifts buzzing, cranes groaning, locomotives breathing steam like iron beasts. A sergeant shouts over the noise. "Keep the Missouri line moving. We've got 300 boxcars inbound." Reinhardt scans the hall, and what he sees next steals the breath from his lungs. An assembly line, not of weapons, but of trains themselves. Locomotive boilers roll down steel tracks. Wheel sets hang from chains. Entire railcars slide into formation like soldiers falling into ranks. Dozens of women in bandanas, Rosie the Riveter types, weld steel frames under showers of sparks. Men operate pneumatic riveters, each strike ringing across the room like artillery in the distance. The officer beside him gestures proudly. "This is what your intelligence reports never captured. Americans don't just use trains. We mass-produce them faster than you can destroy them." Reinhardt's eyes drift across a chalkboard where production numbers scroll in real time. Railcars completed today, 438. Locomotives completed this week, 71. In Germany, a single locomotive takes 6 months. Here, they roll out at a pace he can hardly comprehend. A whistle pierces the air. Another engine, still steaming from its first ignition, rolls past, painted black, gleaming, flawless. The officer smiles. By the time your Luftwaffe bombs 1 yard, 5 more have already replaced the damage. Reinhardt swallows hard. He thinks of the shattered rail hubs in Cologne, Hamburg, and Essen, the endless lines of wrecked freight cars, the factories without coal, the armored divisions stranded because fuel never arrived. He steps deeper into the hangar.
A young American woman wipes sweat from her forehead, then turns to greet him with a polite nod, as if greeting a visiting professor, not a captured enemy general. Her hands are covered in grease. Sparks glow behind her like tiny stars. She speaks with casual pride. "My shift ends at midnight. Another crew comes in after. We run this place around the clock." Reinhardt's stomach knots. Around the clock. Germany cannot match it. Germany cannot even come close. The officer leads him outside to a loading platform. Below them, rows of newly built locomotives wait on multiple tracks, steam drifting beneath the falling snow. "General," the captain says softly, "this is only 1 yard. 1 industrial district, 1 city." He points east, toward a horizon of factories, chimneys, and switching towers stretching farther than Reinhardt can see. Multiply this by Pittsburgh, Detroit, Cleveland, Buffalo, St. Louis, Birmingham, 1,000 more. That is the United States at war. A freight train screams past, a black blur of speed, carrying tank destroyer parts, artillery barrels, gasoline drums, and crates marked "Ammunition Priority." Reinhardt's greatcoat flutters in the wind. He whispers, "Gott im Himmel. We never stood a chance." The American captain hears him but says nothing. He doesn't need to, because the truth is all around them.
The United States didn't just build weapons. It built a supply system so vast, so relentless, that no army on earth could ever outrun it. And Reinhardt, standing in the cold, watching steam rise from a forest of locomotives, finally understands why the war is already lost. Section 4. The Realization. Kansas City, March 1944. Dawn light creeps across the Railyard like a slow-moving tide of gold. Frost glistens on thousands of steel rooftops. Boxcars, tankers, flatbeds, stretching across the horizon in every direction. General Wilhelm Reinhardt stands near the control tower balcony, collar pulled tight against the cold, watching a scene that looks less like a train yard and more like the beating heart of a nation. Below him, a symphony of motion unfolds. Engines rumble, steam hisses, freight couplings slam. A dispatcher waves his lantern. A mechanic dives beneath a locomotive. A crane swings overhead, dropping crates marked rations, frontline priority. 90mm shells, handle with care. Medical supplies, Red Cross. To a casual observer, it's noise. To Reinhardt, it is power. Raw, impossible, unstoppable. The American officer beside him, Colonel James Harlan, checks his clipboard, then nods toward the sprawling yard. "General, this place moves 20,000 railcars a day, and this isn't even the biggest hub." Reinhardt's jaw tightens. 20,000. In Germany, a major city like Frankfurt barely manages a tenth of that, and only on days when Allied bombs didn't hit the switching points. Colonel Harlan continues. "Every tank your panzers knock out, a replacement comes from Detroit in a week. Every bomb your Luftwaffe drops, our factories replace it in hours." He taps a pencil against his clipboard. "We don't fight the war with divisions, General. We fight with production numbers." A switching operator yells from below. "Line 12 clear! Push the westbound through!" A locomotive bell rings. A line of fresh boxcars jerks forward, wheels screaming against the rails. Snow melts instantly against their heated steel sides. Workers swarm the train, young men unfit for combat, older men with rolled-up sleeves, women tying down tarps and locking freight doors. Reinhardt can't look away. So this is the arsenal of democracy. Not a slogan, not propaganda. A living organism. A machine with 1,000 limbs and a single purpose. Win the war. He watches a teenage girl, barely 17, haul a crate of machine gun tripods onto a loading platform. Sweat drips down her temple despite the cold. Harlan notices Reinhardt observing her. You know what she did before the war? She played piano in her school orchestra. Reinhardt exhales slowly. In Germany, girls her age hide in basements while bombs turn cities to rubble. Here, they build the weapons that will end the war. As he walks along the balcony, Reinhardt spots something that freezes him in place. A massive timetable board. 4 rows, dozens of trains, every line stamped. On time, on time, on time. He whispers something to himself. Unmöglich. Impossible. Harlan hears the word and gives a half smile. Not impossible, General. Just American. The whistle of a departing troop train fills the air. Inside its windows, young American soldiers look out with calm confidence. Not the hollow-eyed desperation Reinhardt saw in his own men back in 1943. These soldiers know they will never run out of food, never run out of ammunition, never run out of fuel, never wait for reinforcements that never come. Because behind them stands an empire of logistics, an empire Reinhardt is now seeing with his own eyes. As the troop train begins to roll away, Reinhardt grips the railing. He can feel the truth settling into his bones. Germany was never defeated by strategy. It was defeated by arithmetic, by factories, by trains, by the endless, terrifying abundance of the United States. And there, in the dawn light of Kansas City, General Wilhelm Reinhardt finally understands. The war was lost long before the first American soldier set foot on Normandy's beaches.
Section 5. The Turning Point. April 2nd, 1944, Chicago, Illinois.
Wind sweeps across the steel canyons of the industrial district, carrying the distant echo of factory sirens. General Wilhelm Reinhardt steps off a military transport jeep, boots crunching over gravel dusted with soot. Ahead of him stands an enormous brick structure, the Clyde Industrial Freight Terminal, one of the nerve centers of America's wartime logistics. A foreman in a heavy canvas jacket waves Reinhardt forward. "General, you'll want to see this from inside. It's where the magic happens." Magic. The word unsettles him. Germans believe in engineering, precision, calculation. Americans? They seem to believe in something else entirely. He follows the foreman into the terminal. The moment the doors close behind him, the world changes. The noise hits first. Forklifts whine, engines roar, men shout orders above the clatter of conveyor belts rattling under the weight of steel parts. But this isn't chaos. It's choreography. A perfectly timed, perfectly executed ballet of labor and machinery. An organized storm. In a corner, a team of women welders lower their masks. Sparks fly like white-hot snowflakes, illuminating their eyes with fierce determination. Each weld is identical. Each seam perfect. Reinhardt paces slowly, absorbing every detail. What shocks him most is not the scale. He expects America to be large, but the speed. "They're assembling Jeep engines over there," the foreman says. "Every 18 minutes a finished one rolls off that line. We ship them straight to the rail hub." 18 minutes, Reinhardt murmurs. A German factory takes hours, sometimes days. The foreman gestures toward the far end of the hall. And that's not even the impressive part. They approach a glass observation deck overlooking the switching platforms. Long lines of freight cars sit ready, doors open, awaiting cargo. Each car is tagged with coded labels. ETO, European Theater of Operations. PTO, Pacific Theater of Operations. Priority A, ammunition. Priority B, medical. Priority C, reinforcement supplies. Thousands of crates pass through this room every hour. "General," the foreman says proudly, "Chicago alone moves more wartime freight per day than your entire Reich can in a week." Reinhardt feels the air grow colder. Below them, a cluster of German POWs, labor detail cleared by Geneva rules, load crates under U.S. supervision. His breath catches when he sees their faces. Hardened veterans of the Eastern Front and North Africa, now carrying the very supplies that will be used against their homeland. One of them, a tall NCO with sunken eyes, overhears a U.S. soldier laughing. "Buddy, this place'll keep the war running till Christmas, and then some." The German NCO looks up, meets Reinhardt's eyes for a moment, then looks away. Shame? Fear? Or recognition? Reinhardt suddenly feels as if he's witnessing the funeral of the Wehrmacht, not in flames and rubble, but in overwhelming American abundance. The foreman taps the glass. "You know, General, this week alone Chicago processed 14,000 freight cars. That's just one city. We've got 20 more doing the same thing." Reinhardt closes his eyes. He remembers German soldiers in the Ukraine melting snow for drinking water because fuel convoys never arrived. He remembers tank crews abandoning perfectly functional Panthers because their supply lines collapsed. He remembers Luftwaffe pilots grounded for lack of aviation fuel. And now he stands before the reason. Not Allied strategy, not Allied bravery, but Allied logistics. He grips the railing. His knuckles turn white. The foreman misreads the gesture. Impressive, right? Reinhardt's voice is barely a whisper. Terrifying. And then it happens. The moment he will remember for the rest of his life. A whistle blows, high-pitched, shrill, commanding. From far down the loading bay, a long freight train slowly begins to move. Car after car rolls forward, forming an endless steel serpent stretching beyond sight. The foreman glances at his clipboard. That one's going straight to Norfolk. From there, England. From England, France. Reinhardt watches it roll away. The clicking of wheels on track sounds like a funeral march. He realizes America is not preparing for war. America is preparing for victory. Not someday, not eventually, but now, and in numbers no German general ever imagined possible. When a single train broke the illusion of victory. April 2nd, 1944, 11:40 a.m. General Wilhelm Reinhardt steps outside the Clyde terminal, blinking as sunlight hits him like a flash bomb. Steam hisses from nearby pipes, rising into the cold blue sky. A long freight train rumbles past behind him, its wheels clattering like an unending heartbeat. But it isn't the sound that crushes him. It's the rhythm. Every 7 minutes, another train leaves the yard. Every 7 minutes, another reminder that Germany cannot keep pace. He walks toward a chain-link fence bordering the switching fields. Beyond it, thousands of freight cars stretch out like metallic fields. Some sit in rows 5 deep, some freshly painted, others soot-stained from hard use. The entire landscape looks alive, breathing, shifting, feeding the war. A U.S. sergeant passes nearby, speaking loudly to a group of workers. Keep 'em moving! Eisenhower wants 12,000 tons to Britain by Friday. 12,000 tons. Reinhardt knows German Army Group Center sometimes receives less than that in a month. He grips the fence. Metal bites into his palms. His mind races. How many tanks could this supply? How many aircraft? How much fuel? The numbers flood him like cold water. America, 20,000 locomotives, 1.75 million freight cars, 250,000 trucks built every month. Germany, a fraction of that, and shrinking by the day under Allied bombing. In the distance, a switch engine toots twice. 2 workers sprint to throw a lever. Reinhardt watches them, young, energetic, moving with purpose. They don't look like soldiers. They don't even look tired. They look unstoppable. The foreman joins him again, wiping sweat from his brow despite the morning chill. You know the funny thing, General? Most of our workers aren't even at full shift today. Sunday crews are lighter. Reinhardt stares at him. If this is lighter, what does full strength look like? A deep rumble shakes the ground. Reinhardt looks up to see a line of flat cars loaded with Sherman tanks. New ones. Fresh paint. Turret covers still bolted on for transport. Each tank is strapped down with chains thick enough to anchor a battleship. Brand new models, the foreman says. We send 40 a day, sometimes more. Reinhardt thinks of the German factories in Kassel and Nuremberg, each one limping along, bombed, short on steel, short on coal, short on men. Tigers and Panthers that take weeks to repair, engines that freeze in winter, gearboxes that fail after a few dozen hours. And here, Shermans in rows like loaves of bread cooling on a bakery rack. A U.S. worker, maybe 19 years old, raises a hand to Reinhardt. You should see Detroit, he shouts with a grin. This is nothing. Reinhardt doesn't return the smile, because he realizes the truth. This ordinary industrial yard is the most devastating battlefield he has seen in the entire war. Not Kursk, not Stalingrad, not Tunisia. Here, in the heart of America, he has witnessed the weapon Germany cannot defeat. Capacity. Endless, relentless capacity. The foreman pats him on the shoulder. "General, when your officers go home, tell them the truth. We're not going to run out of machines before you run out of men." Reinhardt doesn't speak. He can't. Because at that moment, a simple thought enters his mind. Quiet, deadly, undeniable. We have already lost the war. We lost it the moment we went to war with a nation that builds like this. The afternoon whistle blows. A new shift begins. Workers pour in from every street. Men, women, immigrants, farmers, veterans, too old for frontline service. They take their places at the benches, the conveyor belts, the crane controls. The war machine does not pause. It only accelerates. Reinhardt steps back from the fence, defeated not by fire, nor steel, nor battlefield might, but by the realization that Germany never had a chance against this avalanche of production. He turns toward the jeep that will take him back to the POW liaison center. His boots drag slightly in the dirt. Each step feels heavier than the last. And for the first time since the war began, General Wilhelm Reinhardt feels something he has never allowed himself to feel. Hopelessness. He looks back one last time. A freight train screams forward, hauling tanks and ammunition eastward, toward the ports, toward Europe, toward the final destruction of the Reich he served. And Reinhardt whispers to himself, "This is the end. The war is already over."